The jungle trembled with heat, alive with whispers older than language. Cicadas screamed in endless waves, and the air shimmered like breath on glass. At the base of the mountain, 4 strangers stood before a forgotten shrine carved from the limestone. Its golden leaf peeling away like burnt skin, its carved faces soft with age and prayer. Dr. Eleanor Shaw squinted upward, hand raised against the light. "We're not disturbing anything," she said, but even her voice seemed to hesitate. Behind her, Jamie Dawson pressed his palm against the statue's chest and felt warmth, faint and pulsing, as though the stone itself breathed. From the shadows, saffron-robed monks watched in silence. Their chanting was low and rhythmic, weaving through the humid air. The elder monk stepped forward and lifted one trembling hand. "This place," he murmured, "was never meant to be seen." Eleanor only nodded, and Marcus's camera clicked to life. Rena scribbled translations as mist coiled around their ankles. The forest stirred, alive, watchful, as thunder rolled far beyond the hills. Somewhere behind the shrine, deep in the hollow heart of the mountain, something stirred and answered their arrival. By afternoon, rain began to fall. Slow, heavy drops that carried the scent of soil and smoke. The archaeologists built camp beside the shrine while the monks disappeared down the trail. Only their last chant lingered like a tremor in the air. Eleanor unfolded maps beneath the tent's dim lantern light. Rena's voice quivered as she translated from her notes. "The door of the unborn must remain closed, else the silent one will breathe again." Her words bled into the sound of the storm. Marcus filmed from the entrance, rain streaking across his lens like tears. Jamie watched the shrine through the canvas flap, his eyes distant, his hand unconsciously drumming a slow rhythm against his leg. Thunder cracked. The ground shuddered. Eleanor looked up. For a brief second, every candle flame bent inward. Night came without warning. One moment it was rain. The next, a suffocating blackness swallowed the clearing. Torches painted the shrine in trembling light. The carvings seemed to move, their eyes deepening into shadow. Marcus insisted on filming baseline footage. He circled the shrine, camera steady. Eleanor watched, arms crossed, feigning control. Rena whispered protective verses in Thai, voice cracking with fear. Jamie filmed from a few steps away. Through the lens, he saw something impossible. Small shapes pressing outward from within the stone, as though a child's hands strained beneath the surface. He blinked, refocused. Nothing, just rain-slick stone and reflection. But the echo of faint knocking reached his ear, rhythmic, like something asking to be let out. Sometime after midnight, the rain stopped. The silence that followed was unnatural. Not peace, but absence. Eleanor woke to the stillness and found Jamie gone. His boots trailed through mud toward the shrine. Her flashlight beam cut through mist as she followed, breath quick, heart louder than her steps. He knelt before the statue, face upturned, whispering to it. "It's not hollow anymore," he said. "It's breathing." She reached for him, just as the stone pulsed beneath their hands. A slow, deliberate thump-thump. Not vibration, not imagination. A heartbeat. The flashlight flickered once. When it steadied, the statue's mouth was open, its carved lips wet, gleaming in the dark. Morning broke fragile and gold, the jungle glistening as if nothing had happened. But none of them spoke of the night. Eleanor buried herself in notes. Marcus replayed the footage in silence, frame by frame, his face growing paler. The sound was unmistakable, a heart beating within the stone. Rena found another translation scratched into a broken tablet. "The breath beneath the golden one is not wind." Jamie stood again before the Buddha, eyes unfocused, lips moving in an unheard rhythm. He rested his hand against the statue's chest and smiled faintly, reverently. "It knows we're here," he whispered. Then, From beneath the vines at the statue's base, something metallic caught the light, a perfect rectangular seam, hidden in gold and stone. The shrine was no longer still. It was waiting. The morning after the discovery, no one spoke of what they'd seen. Instead, they gathered before the shrine like pilgrims before a god that should never have existed. The rectangular seam was now unmistakable. A door sealed with resin and darkened gold. Eleanor ordered the team to document it. Rena protested quietly, her voice shaking, but the sound was drowned out by Marcus's camp. Jamie stood closest, fingertips hovering above the stone, the air around him trembling with heat. A John Preacher returned at noon, his expression hollow. "If you open it," he said, "you open the mouth of hunger." His warning hung there, heavy as the air before a storm. Eleanor said nothing. She pressed her chisel into the seam. When the first piece of gold fell away, the jungle stopped breathing. By late afternoon, the seal was half removed. The sound it made, a deep, wet groan, echoed through the forest. The golden resin peeled away like skin, revealing dark wood beneath, polished and strange. Eleanor's hands trembled, but her eyes gleamed. "It's not a burial chamber," she said. "It's older." Jamie leaned closer. The wood beneath the gold was covered in markings, not language, but symbols that seemed to move when you looked too long. He traced one with his thumb, and felt warmth pulse through it, alive and aware. Rena cried out, snatching his hand away. "Don't touch it!" But it was too late. A gust of wind erupted from the sealed door, scattering dust and ash through the clearing. The air tasted of copper and incense. Every torch flickered blue. When night fell, no one could sleep. The jungle felt wrong, too still, too sharp. Every sound came from the wrong direction. Jamie sat by the shrine, the door now almost completely clear. He whispered softly to himself, his words blending with the rhythmic chirr of insects. Marcus filmed him from a distance, unable to look away. The camera's night vision captured heat, but the warmth radiated not from Jamie, but from the sealed door behind him. Rena dreamed of hands clawing up through wet earth. She woke gasping, convinced she'd heard breathing beneath the ground. Eleanor, still awake, stared at the half-open seam gleaming in the torchlight, and from inside the shrine came a slow, scraping sound, like fingernails tracing wood from the other side. They opened it at dawn. Eleanor gave the order with her voice flat and steady, though her hands shook. Marcus filmed from beside her, the lens fogging with humidity. Rena stood back, muttering prayers under her breath. Jamie pressed his palm against the center of the door and pushed. It groaned open an inch, then two. A wave of cold air rushed outward, old, dry, and heavy, with the scent of metal. Every bird in the forest went silent. Inside was darkness that moved. The torchlight reached only a few feet before being swallowed whole. Carvings lined the walls, monks kneeling before an altar, offering bowls filled with teeth. Jamie stepped forward first. "It's hollow," he said softly, smiling, "but it's not empty." The first step inside felt like walking into a throat. The air was thicker, colder. It clung to the lungs. Torchlight trembled across walls, painted with scenes of ritual. Monks bowing, children held aloft in offering, faces blurred into streaks of red. Jamie whispered that he could hear water dripping somewhere far below, but Marcus's microphone caught something else. The sound of breathing. Rena refused to go farther. She clutched Eleanor's arm, voice sharp with terror. "We shouldn't be here." Eleanor tried to speak, but her voice failed. Her torchlight caught on something glimmering in the dark. A row of tiny golden teeth embedded in the wall, each one smiling faintly. Somewhere deeper inside, a small voice whispered her name. "Memorf Nasid." The descent began with silence. No one spoke. The torches hissed in the still air, throwing ghosts of light along slick walls that seemed to breathe. The narrow passage coiled downward into darkness, the steps uneven, worn smooth by centuries of unseen feet. Eleanor led, the beam of her flashlight cutting across walls, painted with reversed prayers. The letters mirrored, the words unreadable. Rena followed close, whispering to herself, her voice trembling with every step. Marcus filmed from behind, the light from his camera bathing the stone in pale green. Jamie walked last, holding a candle he had found at the entrance, its flame impossibly steady. They descended for minutes that felt like hours. When the tunnel finally widened, what lay below made them forget how to breathe. A perfect replica of the shrine above, carved upside down into the earth, its Buddha hanging from the ceiling like a dead god waiting to fall. The chamber's air was warm and wet, thick with incense that hadn't burned in centuries. Their lights reflected strangely. Every movement doubled, every shadow wrong. When Marcus turned, his camera screen showed them all standing still, though they were walking. Eleanor's breath quickened. "It's a reflection," she murmured. "This is the shrine, reversed." Jamie stepped closer to the hanging statue, drawn like a moth. "It's alive," he said softly, staring into its face. The Buddha's lips were curled into a smile that hadn't been carved by human hands. Behind him, Rena gasped. Her reflection in the mirrored wall didn't mimic her movement. It raised its hand first. The deeper they ventured, the more the world fractured. Their watches stopped. Candles burned backward, wax reforming into perfect white columns. Marcus's camera feed glitched, showing moments they hadn't lived yet. Jamie walking alone. Eleanor screaming in silence. Rena's hand pressed to her own reflection. Rena dropped her notebook, pages soaked with condensation. The ink bled into unreadable spirals. "We have to go back," she whispered. Eleanor ignored her. She stood before a mural of monks with their eyes torn out, each one offering a bowl toward a child seated on a lotus. The child's face was serene, its eyes of gold. Behind them, the inverted Buddha dripped a single bead of dark liquid from its mouth. It struck the floor and hissed like acid. Hours passed, or seconds. There was no longer a difference. Jamie's voice began to change. When he spoke, the sound echoed twice. The second echo younger, smaller. He smiled often now, his gaze fixed on something only he could see. Marcus tried to pull him back toward the passage, but the floor beneath them rippled like water. The reflection of the group beneath their feet moved separately, the mirrored version smiling when they did not. Rena screamed as her reflection reached upward, fingertips pressing against the stone from beneath the surface. The sound was like glass, breaking underwater. Eleanor grabbed her and ran. But as she looked up, she saw herself running on the ceiling, holding no one. They found the stairs again, or what looked like stairs, and ran without speaking. The walls pulsed, the air vibrating with whispers in a language none of them knew. The chanting grew louder the farther they climbed, echoing from above and below at once. At the top, they burst back into the open chamber beneath the real shrine. The door stood wide, but the jungle beyond was gray and unmoving, every leaf frozen in midair. Eleanor turned toward Jamie. He stood still at the threshold, eyes shining. His mouth opened, but the voice that came out wasn't his. It was high, clear, and childlike. "Do you see me now?" it asked. The torches went out. Morning came gray and trembling. The jungle had not moved since the door opened. The air hung heavy, colorless. The team huddled near their tents, haunted by silence. Rena wouldn't speak. She sat cross-legged, staring at the mud beneath her hands, muttering fragments of prayer. Marcus reviewed his footage again and again, his lips trembling. Each playback showed something new. Faces in the mirrored walls that hadn't been there before. Eleanor approached the shrine with deliberate calm, holding her notebook like a shield. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. "We have to finish this," she said. Jamie stood beside the door, his expression soft, almost tender. "It's already finished," he whispered. "You just haven't seen it yet." Behind him, the shrine exhaled a faint breath, stirring the dust in slow, rhythmic waves. They returned underground. The path no longer felt the same. The air was warmer, the walls slick and pulsing as if alive. Each step echoed twice. In the center of the chamber, beneath a hanging Buddha, a new altar had appeared. A small form rested upon it, wrapped in silk and gold leaf, no larger than a child of 7. Its skin was gray and dry, its face serene beneath the thin shimmer of gold. Rena fell to her knees, whispering through tears. "Kuman Thong," she breathed. The spirit of the unborn, the one that was fed by devotion. Jamie reached forward before anyone could stop him. His fingers brushed the silk. The child opened its eyes. For a moment, no one moved. The child's eyes did not blink. They only watched, bright and endless, as the chamber hummed with low vibration. Jamie smiled faintly. "It's awake," he said, voice barely his own. His tone was gentle, reverent, as if speaking to a god. Eleanor whispered, "We need to leave." But the exit was gone. Where the doorway once stood was only smooth stone. Marcus spun in circles, camera jerking in his hands, breathing fast. The child's gaze followed him. Its mouth opened slowly, revealing a tiny row of gold teeth. The air filled with the sound of distant bells, soft, uneven, like laughter. The chamber changed shape. Where the walls had been smooth, now there were carvings. Hundreds of small figures bowing toward the altar, all wearing faces identical to theirs. Jamie's voice filled the air, though his lips barely moved. "You asked for discovery," he said softly. "Now you've found devotion." Eleanor tried to pull him back, but he didn't resist. He simply turned to her, eyes glowing faintly gold. "Don't you see? It's beautiful." Marcus's camera flickered and died. Rena screamed, the sound echoing wrong, bouncing from every direction at once. The carved faces on the wall seemed to grin wider, teeth lengthening as their shadows deepened. Something unseen began to hum beneath their feet. Ajahn Prisha's voice broke through the chaos, not in person, but as an echo rolling through the stone. He spoke words none of them understood, his chant weaving through the air like smoke. The ground shook. The child turned its gaze upward, golden eyes narrowing. Jamie dropped to his knees, covering his ears, screaming. "Stop!" he shouted. "You're hurting it!" Eleanor seized the moment and grabbed Rena, dragging her toward where the doorway had been. The stone cracked open, revealing the faintest slit of daylight. Marcus turned back for his camera. The moment his hand touched it, the chant ended, and silence fell, vast and final. Behind him, Ajahn Prisha's lifeless body materialized against the altar wall, his tongue replaced by a single golden bead. Night fell without transition. One moment daylight, the next an eclipse swallowing the world whole. The jungle outside the shrine went silent, and even the air refused to move. Eleanor and Rena sat in the clearing, their lanterns burning low. The open shrine door yawned black behind them, leaking a faint golden light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Marcus hadn't returned from below. Jamie emerged at last, barefoot, eyes bright with something not his own. He smiled gently at them, his tone tender, too calm. "It's not angry anymore," he said. "It's grateful," Rena recoiled. "What did you do?" Jamie's gaze lifted toward the trees. "It showed me what waits beyond prayer." Behind him, the shrine's glow flared once, soft and wet, like breath on a mirror. The night stretched long, timeless. Rena couldn't sleep. Eleanor wouldn't try. The jungle whispered in a voice neither wind nor insect could have made. Jamie sat beside the Buddha statue, hands folded in prayer, that wasn't his own. His lips moved, murmuring words that shimmered in the air like heat. Eleanor watched him, trembling. "You're not talking to us anymore, are you?" He looked over his shoulder, smiling with childlike innocence. "It's teaching me the way to build a new shrine, one that never closes." Rena backed away, whispering for Eleanor to leave him, but the air around Jamie thickened, gold dust drifting like spores. His reflection rippled in the Buddha's chest, moving faster than his own body. By dawn, Marcus's voice came from inside the shrine, faint, rhythmic, chanting in perfect unison with Jamie. Eleanor crept closer to the entrance, her torch trembling. Inside, the air shimmered with golden haze. Marcus stood before the altar, his camera raised, filming nothing. His skin was streaked with dried blood and gold, veins glowing beneath. Jamie knelt beside him, guiding his chant. The two voices intertwined until they became one. When Eleanor called his name, Jamie didn't turn. He only whispered, "The door doesn't open from this side." Ran. Eleanor didn't move. She could only stare as the Buddha's mouth began to close, swallowing the light. The chanting stopped. The silence that followed was alive. Jamie turned at last, his expression peaceful, radiant. "It's finished," he said. "It's free." Eleanor raised her torch, trembling. "What's free?" He smiled, lifting a hand streaked in gold dust. "You'll see it soon. You'll see it everywhere." The ground beneath them shifted, the shrine groaning like a breathing lung. Eleanor stumbled backward, the flame dying in her grasp. From the altar rose the faint sound of a child laughing. By the time Rena reached the village, dawn had turned the sky pale blue. She pounded on the monastery gates until her fists bled. Monks gathered around her, silent, listening as she gasped out fragments of the truth. The door, the child, the voices. A John Preach's successor stepped forward, head bowed. "The shrine is not a place," he said softly. "It is a promise. Once broken, it will bind again." Back at the mountain, the shrine stood still. The jungle had reclaimed its sound, the morning light soft and clean. But in the distance, deep beneath the Buddha's calm gaze, something shifted. A breath, faint but steady. Inside, Jamie knelt once more, gold dust rising from his skin. His lips moved in silent prayer. The statue's chest expanded in response, as if exhaling through him. The door began to seal itself shut. Months passed. The jungle reclaimed the mountain, roots swallowing tents, vines creeping over footprints and bones. Rain erased what remained of the dig site. When the monks finally returned, they carried silence like a weapon. Ajahn Chai, the new abbot, led them through the overgrown path, the air thick with decay and incense. He stopped before the ruined shrine, his eyes narrowing as if recognizing something he'd never seen. Rena followed behind him, gaunt and pale. She hadn't spoken since the night of the possession. Now she only watched, as if waiting for proof that it had all been real. The shrine's door was sealed again, but perfectly smooth this time with no seams at all. Ajahn Chai bowed. "The mountain keeps what it is given," he murmured. "We rebuild, but we do not wait." Work began quietly. The monks chanted each morning, rebuilding the shrine's outer walls, polishing gold leaf that gleamed in the filtered sunlight. Rena helped where she could, her hands trembling, voice gone. When she looked at the Buddha's calm smile, she saw the child's face beneath it, frozen mid-breath. At night, she dreamed of Jamie kneeling in the dark, gold dust drifting from his skin. His eyes met hers through the stone. "You kept your promise," he whispered. When she woke, her fingernails were caked with red soil. A week later, one of the young monks disappeared. His sandals were found near the shrine, but no sign of struggle. Ajahn Chai ordered prayer for 3 days straight. On the third night, The chanting stopped mid-verse. A sound came from within the walls. Scratching. Slow. Deliberate. Rhythmic. Rena froze. She recognized the pattern. The same pulse that had once echoed behind the door. She pressed her palm against the golden wall. Beneath her skin, the stone was warm. The scratching grew louder. The monks began to whisper about voices in their dreams, soft laughter, the sound of a child calling from behind the wall. Ajahn Chai found small handprints pressed into the gold each morning. He ordered them polished away, but by dusk, they always returned. Rena stopped sleeping. Her reflection in the offering bowl no longer matched her face. She began leaving milk and rice at the base of the statue, whispering the name she hadn't spoken in months. Jamie. And somewhere within the shrine, a faint echo answered, a child's sigh of contentment. On the final morning of restoration, sunlight flooded the valley, too bright, too clean. The monks finished their chants and prepared to seal the shrine once more. Ajahn Chai led the final blessing. His voice trembled only once, on the word forgive. Rena stepped forward without warning. She pressed both palms against the Buddha's chest and whispered, "He's still here." A low hum rolled through the ground. Every monk froze. The golden surface rippled beneath her hands, faint light glowing through her fingers. From inside, something knocked. Once, twice, then laughter. Years passed. The jungle swallowed everything again until the shrine became just another story. A myth murmured by villagers, dismissed by travelers. A small documentary crew arrived, cameras humming softly in the thick air. Their director, an earnest man with curious eyes, said he wanted to capture Thailand's lost places of faith. He didn't know what he'd found. They unpacked their gear, setting up drones and tripods. The shrine gleamed through the mist, perfectly restored, silent as stone. "Roll sound," the cameraman said. From the playback monitor, a faint voice spoke before the film began, gentle, familiar, distinctly Western. Jamie's voice. "Who is that?" the director asked. The crew huddled around the monitor. The man on screen, Jamie, adjusted his camera strap, grinning shyly, wind moving through his hair. Marcus's logo appeared in the corner of the footage. Old, corroded, impossible. Rena's voice entered faintly from behind the camera, translating something. Then the image glitched, static rippling across the frame, and the voice changed, higher, softer, laughing. The crew looked toward the shrine. For the first time, it seemed to breathe. They began filming. The lead producer read from cue cards, words about ancient culture, forgotten craftsmanship, the endurance of faith. But every time the director replayed the footage, the background changed. The shrine's door appeared slightly open, then shut again. The trees behind it bent inward, as though drawn towards something unseen. By dusk, the camerawoman set her equipment down, whispering, "The angles don't match. We're not shooting the same thing twice." The wind shifted. The chanting began again, faint from underground. That night, the crew camped beside the shrine. Rain began softly, then stopped as though cut by a blade. The generator hummed, cameras still running. One of the assistants wandered close to the door, mesmerized by the faint gold glow leaking through the cracks. He lifted his hand to touch it. The director shouted, "Too late." The door opened silently, light pouring over the clearing. Inside, a figure knelt in prayer, golden dust rising from his shoulders. Jamie looked up. He smiled. "You came back." The footage ends abruptly. The next morning, villagers found the crew's equipment neatly arranged at the forest's edge. Cameras, tripods, microphones, all undamaged. No people, only the shrine, sealed once more, gleaming beneath the rising sun. In the monastery archives, a new film began circulating months later, a documentary about Thailand's forgotten temples. The narrator spoke softly, reverently, his name in the credits, Jamie Dawson. And at the film's final frame, the camera panned behind the shrine. The door pulsed once, faintly, like the rhythm of a breathing heart.